Hi, this is Andrew, and I'm here to bring you another KeyForge deck reveal. Uh, so this is Tasker of Junkwork Gate. This is the deck that I opened today at a sealed Swiss event that I went to with my daughters. It was super fun, and I really liked this deck. It ended up only going 2-2 out of it was a pool of 17 people, so we did 4 rounds and then a top cut. Obviously, with 2-2, I did not make it to the top cut. I felt like it probably could have done a little bit better. There was one game in particular where I thought I probably should have mulliganed, and I actually thought that in the moment, and then I didn't do it, and then I regretted it. I think I would have lost that one anyway, to be honest with you. Um, but I feel like I at least kind of wanted to notice or to mention that I think it could have gone a little better, even though I think I would have lost anyway. So also, I guess another thing I'll just mention really quick. These are the Dragon Shield yellow matte sleeves. This is my first time trying Dragon Shield sleeves. Um, they feel so good, and I remember the first time that I used sleeves on cards and felt like, oh my goodness, the shuffling is so much easier. This is amazing, and to be honest, I feel kind of the same way now, going from mostly what I've been using is the FFG sleeves, and then a couple of decks I had the Legion sleeves, and I once in a past life I used some Ultra Pro sleeves. This is my first time using Dragon Shield, and they just feel great. They're not paying me, so I'm not being bought. Although if anybody sees this and wants to pay me, just know that I can be bought, and the price is low. Just come say hi. Anyway, so I don't know. I really enjoyed these sleeves, and they come in denominations of 100. I grabbed 2 packs of 100, which is enough for 5 decks roughly. So anyway, pretty good deal. All right, let's get into it. So this is Tasker of Junkwork Gate with logos, shadows, and discs. And we'll start with the discs. So the first card we have here is Dance of Doom, and this is a cool card. It's a nice, fun rare. Dance of Doom lets you choose a number, and then you destroy each creature with power equal to that number. Um, I was able to use it a couple times just for really getting one creature, but other times was able to get a few. It's nice. This deck doesn't have great ways to deal with big creatures, and this was a way to do that. Next, we have Guilty Hearts. Gain an amber and destroy each creature with amber on it. So this is another rare. This I feel like would be better in a lot of other decks. You'll see this deck has quite a bit of capture, and so I feel like I ended up hurting myself a lot with this. We have Tendrils of Pain. We have 2 copies of that. Gain an amber, deal a damage, and if your opponent forged a key in their last turn, then you do 2 more damage. Then we have Keyhammer. Gain an amber. If your opponent forged a key on the previous turn, unforge it. Your opponent gains 6. So you can't use this early without giving your opponent a bunch of free amber. That's not good. So you kind of have to save it. This is so there. So Keyhammer can be a very bad card because of that, because it ends up being something that's pretty dead. You just want to discard it. There are a couple things that can make it a very good card. One is if you have support just in the form of archives, so you can save it for when it's relevant. And the other thing that can make it really good is if you compare it with other things that make it really annoying to unforge a key. Because if your opponent forges a key for 6, and then you play Keyhammer and you unforge their key and you give them 6 back, and then the next turn they just forge for 6 again, you haven't done much. You maybe slowed them down by a turn, but it's just not that much that you've accomplished. So it needs that support, and you'll see it. We don't have that support, so that's a problem with this deck. Next we have Life Ward, or Life Ward. I've heard it called. I think I like that pronunciation better. Gains you an amber, and then it's an artifact with Omni. Sacrifice it, and your opponent can't play creatures on their next turn. Can be good. Okay, Dust Imp, 2 power, destroyed. When it's destroyed, you gain 2. That's just good. Pit Demon, pretty good. 5 power. That means it'll stick around a little bit, and it can exhaust to steal 1. Shaffles, at the end of your turn, your opponent loses 1. Man, this has. There's one game. Actually, the first game I lost today, this thing just sat on the board for several turns in a row. My opponent had a succubus doing the same thing, and didn't go my way. But if you can keep this on the board, so great to make your opponent lose an amber at the end of every turn. And that includes non-dis turns as well. Okay, next we have Schuler, 5 power, and when you play it, if your opponent has 4 or more, you steal 1. Got 2 of those in here. That's a pretty good card. And once it's out, you can just use it for bashing things. 5 power is not bad for that. Then we have a 6 power Stealer of Souls that when an enemy creature is destroyed fighting it, you purge that creature and gain 1. Obviously, it has to survive the fight for that to take effect, but that's a pretty cool effect when it happens. Purge the creature, gain an amber. That's great. Okay, so now notice, remember I mentioned the KeyForge here, or the key hammer. Notice we didn't have like a lash or even like a charrette, something to follow up. Definitely not great support in-house for that, except for maybe kind of the Shaffles, and if you can pull off a Schuler, that's not terrible, but again, just not that great. Okay, next we have Effervescent Principle. We're getting into Logos territory now. In Effervescent Principle, each player loses half their amber, and you gain a chain. There's certain timing this can be good. A lot of times it's not worth it. Then we have Lab Work, always a good card. Gain an amber, archive a card. Unfortunately, that's really the only archive we have in this deck. Library of Babel, artifact that exhausts to draw a card. Then we have, so here's Strange Gizmo. Strange Gizmo gains you an amber when you play it, and after you forge a key, destroy each creature and artifact. So this can go either way. Sometimes this is very good. The hard part I find is that it's easiest to predict that I'm going to be able to forge when I'm winning, when I have good board control. If I have good board control, then I feel like, okay, I can get up to 6 or 7, and I have a good chance of forging. And in that case, I don't want this thing on the table, right? Because I'm ahead. The other circumstance is when I'm behind, and when you're behind, it's a lot more difficult, especially if you're playing against someone with steel on the table. They can probably drop you by 2 amber, and you don't know what they have in their hand. So it's a lot harder to predict that you're going to be able to forge. So you can get this out. It just might sit out for a couple turns, and then you don't know what else you're going to end up putting on the table. Anyway, it can just kind of go either way. And this deck ends up having a lot of capture, which we haven't gotten around to yet. Not in this, but in Shadows and Logos. And so there were a couple times where I really regretted this because I'd captured, and that just meant it went back to them. So really, it can go either way. You got to be careful with it. Okay, so now, since I mentioned capture, we have 3 Dexters here. Dexter, I don't like. He doesn't make you go fast. He slows you down. He slows your opponent down too, but he slows you down. Not thrilled about the Dexter. Then we have 2 Quixos. Quixo can be nice. 3 power skirmish. That's okay. Being able to fight and draw a card. That's cool. There are I don't know. Like, it's just not a tremendous amount of card draw. I like Bat Drum better. but so it's okay. It's not amazing, but it's okay. And then we have Skippy Time Hog, which is a very powerful one-turn effect that your opponent can't use any cards on their next turn, on the turn after you play this. It's only 1 power, but that's pretty cool. And then we have Titan Mechanic, which is 6 power, and when it's on a flank, each key, yours and your opponent's, costs 1 less. So if you're getting ahead, this can really help. Situational, but it can be quite good. And then lastly, we have Experimental Therapy. You put this on a creature, the creature gets stunned and exhausted, but the creature is now part of every house. So that's pretty cool. I was able to have that on, I think, a Pit Demon at one point, and that drew fire. I had it on, what did I have it? I think I had it on the Stealer of Souls at one point, and it stuck around for a while. So there's you can get some good value out of this if you have board control. If you're behind, it just marks a creature that your opponent really wants to kill. Okay, and notice again we had Effervescent Principle, but nothing else really to segue with the Keyhammer. We didn't get like an interdimensional graft or Neurosiphon, some of the things that might help in a situation like that. Okay, now into Shadows. Booby Trap. Notice Bait and Switch would have come before this. So no Bait and Switch in here. Again, that works well if you have a deck where you're capturing and key hammering and things that can cause your opponent to way overload on Amber. It's nice to have a Bait and Switch. This deck doesn't do it. So, Booby Trap, gain an Amber. It's an action. I tried to use this as an artifact at one point and had to apologize. Just make sure you read what a card is. Anyway, it's an action. You deal 4 damage to a creature that's not on a flank with 2 splash. If there's no creatures on a flank, then you just get the Amber. Or no creatures not on a flank, you just get the Amber. Yeah, it's pretty good when the time's right. Then we have a Ghostly Hand, which is a great card. 2 Amber, and then if your opponent has exactly 1, you steal it. That's pretty cool if you can pull it off. The 2 Amber is great anyway. So, and then if you can get the steal in, that's just adding insult to injury. Next, we have 2 copies of Seeker Needle. Not my favorite card. It's okay, but how many times is it going to fire? Being able to plink for a little bit of damage is okay. Then we have Speed Sigil. Okay. Gain an Amber, and then the first creature played each turn enters play ready. Such a double-edged sword. I mean, it applies to both people. And yeah, that first game that I lost, I remember I had this in my opening hand. I thought, I know I should mulligan. I know I don't want to play this until I have some idea what my opponent has. And then I thought, what the heck? It's for fun. And it was fun. He got out a Succubus and then 3 Toxins, and was able to basically just prevent me from ever doing anything, and it was gross. So all that to say, be careful with Speed Sigil. Again, it can be good. It's just so situational. And there was one game I got it out along with Strange Gizmo, and so I was able to get some use out of it without worrying about it sticking around forever. In that second game, I just never forged a key, so my Strange Gizmo didn't go off. Okay, next we have Mesa's Asp, 3 power, Skirmish, and Poison. It's great for knocking stuff out. Mac the Knife is 3 power, has Elusive, and you can use Mac the Knife as if it belonged to the active house. That is pretty cool. So basically every turn you get to use Mac. So he can fight or reap, but also has basically the same effect as Seeker Needle if it comes to it. So he's definitely better than Seeker Needle though, because on a turn where that doesn't make sense, where you can't deal 1 damage to a creature, destroy it, and gain an Amber, you can just reap, and it's effectively Omni. So that's pretty cool. Then we have Moon Cursor, 1 power, skirmish, and poison. So if you can get that 1 damage onto anything, it's going to die. And when Mooncursor fights, it steals 1. That's pretty good. Then we have Old Bruno, 3 power, elusive, and when he's played, he captures 3. We have 2 copies of Shadow Self, which are great to stick next to, cards like Mooncursor and Mace's Asp and Mac the Knife. Some of the, Quixo. And then lastly, Umbra. Also a good thing to go next to the Shadow Self. Umbra is 2 power, skirmish, and when he fights, he steals 2. So that's it. I feel like there's some good stuff in here. The Shadows is pretty good, with the exception of not having any big steal, bait and switch, and not a lot of consistent steal either. Really, Umbra, is that it? Is that my only steal card in here? Oh, Mooncursor. Umbra and Mooncursor. Oh, and then Ghostly Hand. So, but that's unlikely. So we just don't have a lot of consistent steal in here. The Logos is pretty mediocre, and then and the Dis was okay, but Key Charge just doesn't have the support it needs to be good. So so I the first game I played was decently close, but I did manage to win it, and then lost the next one really soundly. That guy went on to be 4-0 and get to the top cut. So and I don't know how he did in the top cut because I took off, but but he did really well, and he had a good deck and he played it well. Then just barely managed to lose my third game. We did a follow-up game for fun, and things just came out in a different order, and I wiped the floor. Some variance there, but that's the way the game goes. And then in the fourth game, I did manage to pull out a win, and it was a pretty solid win. And we played a second game there too for fun, and managed to get that as well. So anyway, ended 2-2. So did both my daughters. So I'm really proud of them as well. Oh, a couple other things I just wanted to share that I thought were kind of cool. So one is the promo item that I got. This is actually a little funky, but it's one of the little mini cards. If I were really paying for the event to get these, I would feel sad, but really I'm paying to get the cool competitive experience. Anyway, but this, if you get a bunch of them, you can use these as amber. That's okay. And then this is a little weird. I think this is supposed to denote that, keys cost 1 extra. I guess I feel like that's kind of it's weird. It's hard to imagine using that, but maybe somebody will. I could definitely imagine using this for amber, and cool artwork, grabber jammer, and total recall, fun stuff. And then I don't know if this is a situation that most people find themselves in, but on Monday we ended up going to a Chainbound event, and I ended up in a situation with both my daughters there playing, where I was pulling out my KeyForge app on my phone in order to check myself in to the event, and then also had to sign up for a second account in a browser for one of my girls, and then had my brother-in-law text me a picture of his QR code to register my third daughter, or my second daughter, the third one of us. And so I had the KeyForge app, my browser, and messages all kind of open and just cycled between them. But I thought, man, that's kind of annoying to have to do. So this morning before we went to this event, I put this together, and it's just I took one of the images that is part of the KeyForge promotional material, and threw it in OpenOffice Writer, and I made up a little name for myself there, Andrew the Surpassingly Loquacious. Put it in white with shadow so it would stand out a little bit. That's not important. And then the really important part is the QR code there. Superimposed that over it. So made one of those for each of us with different QR codes from those 3 different accounts that I mentioned before. So they're all different QR codes. Same image, although it could have changed that too. Made up names for my girls too, so that was fun. They really liked that. They worked together with me on it a little bit, and then I kind of tweaked them. And then printed them on cardstock, cut those out, laminated it, and then had one of my girls cut those out as well. So the result is, something that'll last a little bit, is easy to carry around, and we can each just walk up and hand this to be scanned in when we're doing the event, setting everything up, and not have to juggle a phone around. And this means, if my phone's low on battery or whatever, I just don't have to worry about that having this here. So I highly recommend it. I'm pretty stoked about how it turned out, and wouldn't shock me if other people thought of this too, and you'll see more people doing it. Anyway, so that's that. I had a good time. My kids had a good time. I have another deck I'll share in just a minute after I make sure my dog's still alive. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed and that you keep forging those keys.